Welcome to another artist chat with Music for Your Inbox. Today we're going to talk with this month's film artist, Miguel Ayala, about his really incredible animation, film, and puppetry even film called Dust Catchers. So I'm going to get Miguel invited. Hi, welcome. Perfect.
Hey.
It's so nice to get to talk to you about your film. I was just kind of introducing you as the film artist for this month and your really beautiful film, Dust Catchers.
Thank you.
And I wanted to point out also that this is not the first time we've been lucky enough to get to work with you on Music for Your Inbox. Last November, exactly a year ago, we were able to present your visual artwork for our month called Sound House. And this is your piece that you painted. Well, it was mixed media for us called Clockwork Weather Report. And it's always exciting to get to present artists in their different modalities. So this month we get you as a film artist for your very cool piece called Dust Catchers.
Yeah,
And
thank you. That was a lot of fun working on that. It was just like an all around I got to perform for the puppets,
right.
and then make a painting.
Yeah,
it. And
which is a really beautiful.
That was really fun.
Yeah, and this was kind of a reflection on the film for that month. So this month, I love the title of your film, Dust Catchers, and I thought dust might be a good place to start the conversation. So can you talk about what got you interested in dust, and how was it part of the inspiration for this project?
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh. So I think it really started with well, I was asked to teach a workshop on art hazards.
Oh.
And I had been and it was just not that I had special knowledge about art hazards, but I had taken courses on prevention and that kind of stuff, and I just went into a rabbit hole of the dangers of the materials that you use and the spaces and having modes of basically modes of prevention, ventilation, proper protection, things like that, and then I was working a lot of I was working a janitor job at an animation studio, and that was kind of a trip because I was studying for that class for the workshop, and then there was this book called The Secret Life of Dust: From the Kitchen Counter to the Cosmos.
Mm.
And that was by Hannah Holmes, and it was just this really basically the world, one of the chapters is the world in a grain of dust, taken from the William Blake. There's actually an excerpt that I can read.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
So here it goes. So since the day I stood in the Gobi Desert and contemplated the population of dust in the sky, I've come to see the air as a medium and dust as the message. Dust delivers the world news. The Rocky Mountains are eroding, excuse me, and a volcano is erupting in the Philippines. It carries the local headlines too. The neighborhood coffee roaster is burning beans, and traffic is heavy on the turnpike. And it brings us to the social pages, the news about human activity, for we are dusty creatures.
That's beautiful. Thank you for reading that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of fell into into this rabbit hole of dust. Even the Sound House piece was sort of related. to dust. Like uh, there's like uh, machines that that measure like the temperature in the atmosphere to for like dust particulates, because um, that affects the like the way a missile would like travel from one place to another. So it's always like measured and like, and then they have to like compute that into the how into the trajectory, whatever, however that works. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was.
And so in this piece, dust features prominently as this kind of like I would say like this reoccurring imagery that's like kind of um um it's like really structural, like it comes back over and over again in kind of a collage of a lot of different images. So I was wondering if you could talk about like how you portrayed like dust in this, because we all maybe are more like used to dust as like the thing you wipe and you see in like this very, you can't really see the detail of dust, but you've taken this really different visual approach to dust. Can you talk about what you did and how it looks in your film?
Yeah, great question. Uh, I feel like I, I think of like dust as like a collage, because
Mm-hmm.
if you like, you they're like clustered, and then if you like look how their relationships, they come from different places. So uh, so that was one way of that I look at it. And uh, uh, the the animation, uh, uh, I was experimenting with this foam this foam called, it's a foam that's usually used for well, it's like upholstery, but a lot of like puppeteers makers use this like medium density foam, and that's the foam that's running through like the film.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and just like through various dust from like different locations, in my roots, from like windowsills, ceiling fans, the floor. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
um, so that underneath the microscope, with light going through it, it was just like this other world that I was like mesmerized by. Uh, and yeah, I did like I sort of like lost track of time when I was like uh, making the animation, because uh, I, I started with like 24 frames per second, and that was like and then I went down to like 10 frames per second, and then that was like a more um, uh, I don't know, pleasing to the eye,
Yeah,
or
so
it made more sense visually.
you're talking about, just to make sure I'm kind of tracking, so you used the microscope to take photographs of the dust or the foam with dust in it, is that right?
Yeah, the foam with dust. The foam essentially is the dust catcher.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
mhm.
And then you took all of these photos through the microscope, and then photos don't move by themselves, right? Because they're photos,
Yeah,
shiny objects. But then
yeah,
you chose to like cycle through the photos in this kind of animated way. And typically film uses 24, well, can use different frames per second, but 24 is one that a lot of us are familiar with visually. And you started with that and it was just maybe way too fast. Is that right?
yeah.
And so then you change it to like 10. So we see like 10 images of dust every second, which makes, having seen the video, it makes it feel like there's this, almost like you're tunneling through this world and you're just like, it's like coming at you and you're
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
moving through. Does that sound right
Yeah,
to
yeah,
you, the way I've
yeah,
described it?
yeah, exactly. Mm.
That's really neat. And I can imagine this kind of having gotten lost in this kind of detail work before myself. I can really imagine sitting at this microscope and like every image being like its own universe of this like beautiful crystalline kind of dustscape. I would really encourage anyone watching to check out the trailer we have for, I mean, obviously check out the whole film, but if you want like a quick taste, the trailer we have for your film features some of that dust animation right at the beginning. Um, so I also wanted then to so we have this like dust framework, but the other thing you brought to us right away that I think is really crucial to understanding how this piece unfolds is you started with a piece of music that you wrote. Um, and I would describe it as kind of a minimalist. There's lots of like kind of repetition and looping, and you told us that this piece of music was kind of inspired by the idea of commuting. Could you talk about what that inspiration was and like how that music came to be?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Um, um, yeah, the piece originally was this was a 20-minute piece,
Hmm.
and it went through like so many different changes, and I was making it from commutes to like Valencia to San Bernardino to back and forth, and there was this like uh yeah, I feel like the same as like the animation, I sort of like lost track of time, and I wanted um to capture or to convey that sort of like that feeling of like losing the sense of time,
Hmm.
um, which was which was um, it was tricky because I figuring how to the first idea was like to to run the music to have it play along with like the just with just uh, the foam dust animation, and then with working with John, he really like expanded um, um, my ideas in question. He really yeah, it was really great. It was like he's like a scientist when it comes to sound.
Yeah, John Eagle, he met with you to like kind of talk about because 20 minutes. So I just want to acknowledge too, like the thing you created is such a like a tangible physical labor intensive process that like as a viewer I feel like I'm getting to like touch with my eyes in like a weird way, like it's so like tactile and very labor intensive. And so you worked with John and to kind of rework the music into a smaller scale, in part because a 20-minute piece of the techniques that you were using would have been a pretty Herculean effort. It actually was still a Herculean effort, but that would maybe have been a Sisyphean one, whatever Greek god or person is worse than that. Um, so John helped you kind of like com- make the music a little bit shorter and we rework it. Um, so what was that kind of, where did you end up or what were you feeling like how did the music change for you over that process?
uh, yeah, it was yeah. So the during the time frame that I made it, like so much happened during that time that I feel like that somehow like it was embedded into the work somehow.
Like in your life?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Just like projects that I was working on,
yeah.
and I feel like that that somehow came through. Sorry, I feel like I'm avoiding the question or
No,
forgot the
it makes a
question.
lot of sense. I mean, and you kind of already answered it too. There's like kind of my experience of it and what I'm hearing you say is like the music was originally made in these kind of layers to reflect this idea of, and it kind of reflects this idea of like travel and meditation. I know when you've described it to me, I think a lot about how when I drive a path that I've driven a ton of times, like sometimes you arrive and don't really remember
Yeah,
the
yeah,
trip.
yeah,
And there's also this incredible term road hypnosis that comes from long drives where you just like seeing the road move over and over again. You get kind of this like trancy kind of state. And I think the music really captures that, this kind of meditative, looping, flow state that you were kind of describing. Um,
yeah.
and so the kind of to describe back to like the visuals, you kind of touched on this a little bit. You have this dust animation that's kind of this reoccurring image. And originally the plan was to just be all dust animation, but the final film ended up being really actually different than I think maybe any of us expected. It's got collage and some actions of yourself you filmed and puppets and mixed media. Um, can you talk about like how did those elements start to like come into the project and what was it like putting them all
Yeah,
together?
yeah. So as I was like reworking the music, just going back and forth, back and forth, and then it just just changing and evolving like over time. And then it felt like, yeah, this needs uh the structure of it. I felt that I called for um, something different. So so that's why I was like, I can't. I'm like, okay, what do I have, and what so so a lot of the stuff is like either like things that think fragments of things that I've been working on, like photos, like that photos and video from my cell, or like other things were like set up, I things that I set up that I staged, uh, uh, um, um, over the different excuse me,
Hmm.
the different places that I was at during that time, um, which really helped. Uh, I had a residency during that time, and having the space really was really nice to like you know stage some of um, those things. Um,
So would you say that it's in a way like in an abstract way, it's kind of autobiographical, or it's like an intuitive kind of capturing of just where you were when you were making it? Is that?
um, I guess in a way it is, but I wanted to like to make like a expanded narrative, um, incorporating that incorporates like fairy tale like children's literature
Mm,
ideas, like stories, like like there's this there's this one part where this is this like goblin hand, and that's sort of like a fragment from like Hans Christensen, The Snow Queen, where it's like
mm,
this idea of like this like goblin in the beginning. It's like the origin of the story where he creates this mirror that basically distorts everything that it reflects, and then at some point it breaks and shatters into many pieces, and it falls on humanity. That's kind of
mm.
like the origins of that story. So and then so in a way, incorporating like sort of like the idea of like art hazards and prevention kind of looks um, like see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, smell no evil, and a lot of like a lot of um, exposure comes from like inhalation.
Mm.
Inhalation. So like there's this like micro and macro like exploration that I like to explore, which is like in like like that I feel like that's like in like driving or and like but also like in the body.
Right. And as you're kind of saying these things, I feel like my experience of the film is getting so much richer in like retrospect. Because I know like for myself, when you were first mentioning dust, I was really like singularly fixated on this idea of like furniture dust. But even just you describing this like micro macro, like I remember the famous Peter Sagal quote, right? We are all made of stardust. I'm butchering it, but that
Yeah.
idea of like dust being this kind of cosmic and micro thing. Um, and then I think I sensed that kind of these fragmented storytellings in your film, but hadn't like labeled them for myself. And I feel like now I'm reimagining it. There's like some angel imagery and the goblin glove hand, and like these cats feel that appear. Like it's all
Yeah.
very fragmented, but you do get the sense of like a storybook,
Yeah. 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 Yeah,
you
sort
know.
of like, like your classic, like, oh, storybook. I always like that. Oh, we're going to open the page and the story begins after the chimes
Yes,
ring like this.
yes,
Let's begin now.
yes.
um, so yeah, so that was like, it's like very like fragmented. Um, uh, um, yeah.
Well, and I think you used a really important word earlier, this idea of collage. And I also love, like, I feel a little bit shaken in a good way of you describing dust as collage. That, like, it looks like it looks like one thing, but it's made up of all of these different, like, things, these parts, which is what collage is. Um, but I think that you've kind of manifested that, you have this idea of dust as a collage, and then you have a structure of your film and like the mechanism of your film being like this collage, I think is super interesting. And I'm really kind of thinking now about like this idea of fragmentation and collage and dust, and it's a very good swirl of ideas that you've created and connected here. And I think something else I kind of wanted to talk about that's related was is that I think as an artist, your practice in a way is very collage like. Like you work in all of these different mediums. You are in you create music, you compose, you perform music, you do puppetry, which you both like perform and create the puppets, you make visual art. This is very wide and diverse practice. What was it like to move that practice into film? Have you, you know, I, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is, you haven't worked a lot in like the film medium, but I feel like it felt very you still. And did you discover any things about your practice, or what was it like to kind of bring that all into a film medium?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like, uh, so before going to, I went to Cal Arts, in the art program. And before that, I was doing more film, like more like videography and like things like that. And I feel like I learned. I mean, I always let photography and composition um, and 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 there was a period of time where I had like a group of filmmaker friends who we would work on each other's, like we would help each other on our films and our like music videos and like projects. I felt like that was kind of like my crash course or something.
Hmm.
And then and that was like during the time of like DV tapes, Final Cut 6, CS3. Uh, and then I started school, and then I started school as a with a painting portfolio, and then I sort of lost track of it because technology was. I felt like it was like the technology was changing from like
Hmm.
DV to like digital and storage. Oh my gosh,
Mm.
it's just and organizing that stuff is just really, it was just really hard. So yeah, working with film, it was really great to like. I felt like it's a great way to contain, you know, you could do, you know, put your visuals and sound. Uh, yeah, yeah, I love film. I wish that you know, there's so many different aspects of it, but it's more, you know, it could be like a solitary, which I haven't found, which you have to kind of like set up your like a station for
Mm-hmm.
that. But it's also very like collaborative, you know. You'd have to like
Mm-hmm.
work with actors or like you know, a crew,
Mm-hmm.
which
Fabricators. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so no, it's I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. I find it really interesting to hear about kind of your background in film. So this was kind of like a return and a reintegration in a lot of ways. And I think something that's really worth pointing out about your practice in general and this film, the way it appeared in this film, is that I experience your work as being like very tactile and like handmade and hand like there's a sense of touch in the work you do um and that's really true in this film too, which is kind of I think is really interesting because film is kind of a like it you don't touch it necessarily. And so but you still created this sense as a viewer that like I really could feel the texture of what you created. And I was wondering if you could talk some about like your either your practice as it relates to like making things with your hands or like a sense of touch and handmadeness, which is now a word I'm going to use, because it's such it's I feel like I see it all over your work, and I'd love to hear about what that's like for you, what it means to you.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I feel like a lot of times it's like I start with. I feel like your hands think. You know, like
Mm,
you're just like uh, you're just like shaping something, and you're like you don't know, and it's like you, and then it becomes something, and yeah, I think that was why what I didn't like is being on the computer so much
right.
that but I love like listening and like shaping it. I kind of wish like there was like a tactile like interface where it's like I'm like
Yes.
pull the level like push the sound up and the gain or whatever, and I'm like
Yeah,
um but it's like
it's more of a mouse
like the
situation.
Wizard of Oz or something. Like something like
Yeah.
um for but yeah, I love, yeah, that's my default, working with my hands.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm um yeah, just it's just my hands just start something and then my brain catches up.
Hmm.
I feel
Well, I love the way you phrase it, like that thinking with your hands, because I think a lot of artists use like the term like intuitive practices and things like that, but it feels like an important different flavor, the idea of thinking with your hands and like trusting your body to like know and not just like in like an intuitive way, but in a knowing way.
yeah. So it like you're like you go like back and forth your hands. You're like, oh, what is this? And then like, okay, so I made this thing, and like, like I'm gonna juxtapose it with this, and what does that what does that create?
Yeah.
And and then um, so you're experimenting, and like delving into your like curiosity, and like, oh, what's this? I have this like fragment of this idea that I want to try out on this like this idea of like the ladybug.
Mm.
That's like a symbol of like protection and like good luck during your journeys. But it's also like um, somehow it's the origin of the name Ladybug or Lady Beetle is with the Virgin Mary.
Mm.
Like the name, um, it got its name from the Virgin Mary, because in the Middle Ages, uh, there was like a crop devastation, and then like they people prayed for like aphids for uh, for the plague to go away, and then ladybugs intervened, and then so
Eat
that's
all the
how like
aphids.
yeah, it ate all aphids, and so now like a lot of like the imagery for the Virgin Mary was like a red cloak with like black spots, and the black spots would like symbolize her joys and sorrows.
Mm.
Um, so I just like that was like an interesting kind of
Yeah, I feel like in this moment, I desperately want to do like a director's cut where you explain or like talk about some of this imagery because this ladybug image comes in. It's like, I would say it's like 5 seconds that it just like emerges, right? And to know there's this kind of depth of like connection making between imagery and ideas. I think that that's just really exciting. It's really exciting as a viewer to think about how I can like, um, okay, hopefully this makes sense, but like, you do the same thing over and over again and it becomes a meditation. You can start to like see more detail in it and also like get deeper into the experience while also like being in a flow state that sometimes makes you like totally forget where you are. I feel like in a way, I feel like inspired to do that with your film. Like, just kind of, I've watched it many times already, but it feels like there's so much to like deepen into, like this richness that you've created through pulling these different ideas together. Um, it's a really special film, and I think that like people watching, you need to go see it. Grab a ticket because it's a huge effort and a huge accomplishment, and also um, is so much more than the effort because it does feel just like this very special trip, very special journey that you get to go on to see it. So we're really grateful, Miguel, to like get
yeah.
to present it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity. It was so fun. It was really great to all the different stages. Like how it came about. Working with John and like talking about it, and then all the help like putting it together. Like, oh, let's work on this. Let's tighten this up, or like like that was that's great. I
Yeah.
love. I feel like I've been seeking like collaborative works, and that's been like sort of like a driving force lately.
Hmm.
Deadlines are
Oh,
magic.
oh, magic. And just to have someone else look at your work and be like, I'm having a feeling here. What do you think about
Yeah,
that feeling? Can be
yeah,
so helpful. Yeah, it was really special for us to get to be a part of that process. And for anyone watching, the tickets are open now until November 30th to see Miguel's piece. And you can also get a piece of mail art by Justin and Kim. It's called Garfield Park, which is a oil painting that kind of shows how the geography of this area connects through its streets and roads, which is a really nice pairing
yeah,
to your piece about travel and place. So
yeah.
yeah, we hope people check it out because it's really special. So thanks, Miguel, for a really great chat and for your art.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great week. We'll
All right,
talk to you
thank
later.
you. You too.
Bye.